Thank you very much, and thank you, Secretary Holland, for joining us today to talk about the resources that Interior needs to keep up its vital work. In my home state of Washington, our incredible forests and mountains and waters give our families a great place to go outdoors and explore. We attract many visitors and bring in dollars from across the world, and we are central, and it is central to our economy. The work we do to take care of them for now and for generations to come could not be more important. Everything from tackling the climate crisis and wildfires to protecting our priceless ecosystems and species, including salmon, of course, and keeping our word to our tribes, which should include ensuring certainty for tribal sovereignty, payments by moving them to the mandatory side of the ledger, which is something Chairman Merkley and I are both very focused on. And as we talk about our incredible public lands, I want to note that yesterday marks 1 year since the Hurricane Ridge Day Lodge at Olympic National Park in my home state of Washington burned down. This was an amazing, iconic structure, and ensuring that Hurricane Ridge gets rebuilt remains a top priority for me. Our public lands are not just a national treasure, they are truly a national necessity, and I want to make sure that our FY25 bills really reflect that. FY24 was a tough year that forced a lot of difficult decisions, and the 1% increase in funding that is now provided for FY25 under the caps we are now living with is not enough to meet this moment, including for Interior. So as members talk about how we might increase investments to better meet our defense needs, I will not let us ignore our needs here at home as well, either. We have to remember that our national strength is directly tied to having strong, vibrant, and resilient ecosystems, and our safety is directly related to our response to threats like wildfires, to just give a few examples. As I said before, when it comes to considering additional resources, I'm going to insist on parity for non-defense. Secretary Holland, the FY25 budget request includes key funding increases to sustain programs. When we do not fully fund our programs, there are real on-the-ground impacts, like at North Cascades National Park, where cuts have meant that the park has had to cut back on staffing. Stehekin is going to offer fewer services this year, and the Golden West Visitor Center is going to remain closed this summer. How is your department managing staffing levels, particularly, by the way, in the face of rising housing costs?
Senator, thank you so much for the question. And yes, I know this is a constant issue across the national park system. Specifically in the rise of visitation. So the NPS expects, unfortunately, parks will not be able to hire as many seasonal rangers for the peak visitation season. However, we're working hard to ensure that we can move the needle on that forward. 2024, yes, it was a terrible year. It remains a priority for us given all of the facts that you just mentioned to us.
Well, I just think we all have to remember that the work we do here impacts people's ability to visit our amazing places across the country, and that's why I'm so adamant about funding for that. Salmon are absolutely essential for tribes and environment and economy of the Pacific Northwest, and salmon recovery is not easy. It requires working at it from every angle, like investing in our hatchery infrastructure, protecting and restoring our critical habitat, combating invasive species like the European green crab, and addressing emergent pollutants like 6-PPD. Secretary Holland, talk to us about how your FY25 budget request will help with salmon recovery.
Thank you, Senator. And the 2025 budget includes $24 million in appropriated funding to support the Columbia River Basin salmon recovery efforts in reclamation and in the Fish and Wildlife Service. This includes funding in the Bureau of Reclamation for the Columbia and Snake River Salmon Recovery Project for studies, habitat restoration, and mitigation to address the impacts of reclamation water projects on anadromous fish. I beg your pardon if I didn't pronounce it correctly. Also provides funding to evaluate the potential success of reintroducing those fish upstream of the Grand Coulee Dam. Funding in the Fish and Wildlife Service, Partners for Fish and Wildlife, and coastal programs and hatchery operations will also support partnership salmon recovery and habitat restoration efforts.
Thank you. And finally, the Department of Interior plays, as you know, a crucial role in the energy transition, an effort I know that you strongly prioritize. That includes offshore wind leasing, like last week's proposed auction off the coast of Oregon. I certainly support the department's efforts. I've heard from tribes in my state that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is not doing enough to consult with them before making decisions. These tribes have fishing rights for Pacific salmon, with migratory ranges extending all the way to Southern California. Can you tell me what BOEM is doing to not only consult with the treaty tribes, but to incorporate their feedback when making offshore wind leasing decisions?
Thank you for that question as well. And of course, we listen and take tribal concerns very seriously. Tribal consultation is one of our top priorities. I know that BOEM engages with indigenous communities on all of these issues. They have made that a specific part of their leadership team to ensure that there is a specific person that liaises with tribes. BOEM also works closely with tribal communities to support capacity building and meaningful engagement. We work with any of the wind companies that are working in the particular areas to create their own relationships with the tribes. I know that there have been recently, the industry has worked to create agreements with tribes specifically for some of the issues that they are concerned about. I can just tell you that I have traveled personally to meet with tribes on offshore wind on many occasions, both on the east and the west coast, and we're doing our best to ensure that they are part of the conversation, and yes, that their concerns get incorporated.
Okay, well, we are hearing concerns from our tribes about being consulted, so if my staff could follow up with yours.
Will be happy to be in touch with them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.